slip away. There's something about the words you say. I hear them when you're not around. And there's something about that look in your eyes and your voice's sound.
The following is a presentation of the Belly Up Sports Media Network.
You are listening to the 1420 Sports Bar Podcast. 4 beer with a sports talk and a whole lot more. We are part of the Belly Up Sports Network. Listen in as Brent and Dave invite you to belly up to the bar with them to talk about everything in the world of sports, just like you would do at your favorite watering hole. It's sports, beer, and shenanigans. So belly up to the bar with us, grab a beverage, and let's get into it. All right, the 1420 Sports Bar Podcast, 4 beer sports talk and a whole lot more for this Friday afternoon of August the 18th, 2023. Today's show is brought to you by SeatGeek.com, the SeatGeek app. Use promo code 1420pod at SeatGeek.com today. You wonder how many times the guy said that over the last 3 years almost. But anyways, use promo code 1420pod at SeatGeek.com and save yourself $20 on your first purchase at SeatGeek.com today and help support the 1420 podcast. Remember, we are part of the Belly Up Media Network. Go to bellyupsports.com and check out all the great articles and other great podcasts that are on part of the network as well for your listening pleasure on this August weekend. And it's hot, and boy, oh boy, it's fires going on all over the place. We'll talk about that in half a second too. But thank you to everybody who's been listening to the podcast, whether it be daily, weekly, monthly, once in a while, first time, every day, whatever it might be. Thank you very much for the it's almost been 3 years. It's 3 years to the day, actually, where I was sitting downstairs here at 1420 World Headquarters. Back then, we used to call it the Yankee Tavern North, contemplating what I got myself into with this podcast thing. Let's rewind 3 years, probably 3 years and 2 months, I guess. But I was at a party. COVID was on one of its hiatuses, or whatever you want to call it, where your restrictions were lifted a little bit. So we went to a gathering at a friend's acreage there, and we were having some beers and everything else. And it was the first time I saw a lot of my friends since my dad had passed away a couple of months prior to that. So it was a little bit emotional. And it was a bit of a wreck when that all happened. I still am to this day. Still never really haven't fully recovered from that. That's another story maybe for the shrink or anybody to talk about. But it's one of those things, you hadn't seen your friends, and you go through something like COVID, and then the passing of your dad, and it was good to see people. It was pretty tough. It was pretty tough between the years for me, and it was one of those things. I was really grateful to get out there and have a good time. But we'll get to that maybe at a later date completely. But during that night out there, Dave, 1420 Dave has become known across the Twitter sphere, or X sphere now, I guess it's called. Dave was there. We were a few beers deep, having a good time and laughing like nothing had changed, and which it hasn't when you have good friends like I do. That it turned out quite well. That we were sitting around talking. People didn't want to bring up other things. It was just a nice, lighthearted evening. Everybody's been going through a lot of stuff, and so it was a good night to have out. It's a good time, just texting somebody there. It was a good night to have out anyways, but David's at some point, he said, "Hey, we should start a podcast." And I said, that's not the worst idea you ever had, Dave. And then, of course, our friends were talking about no one's going to listen to you guys. Like, we're your friends. We don't want to listen to you guys. No one's going to listen to this thing. We said, let's give it a shot one day. And maybe it's just the drunk talk and everything else that gets going when you've had a few, and the drunk person's words or sober person's thoughts. It usually just goes away, and it never becomes anything. But it's kind of funny how it sat in your head, and then COVID went on, and I was sitting down here doing a whole bunch of nothing. I'd work a little bit in my job at Medicine Hat, and it was a little bit here, a little bit there, unfulfilling. We'll get to that later on in the podcast here, but you get thinking, well, maybe we should do this. Like during COVID, there was nothing really to do. There was no sports on, so you listen to Michael K show a lot, and they were doing a lot of trivia and just talking, reminiscing about sports and everything else. And I thought, you know what, that's not the worst idea. Maybe I should give this podcast thing a go. Let's see what we can possibly do, like how this can come about doing it. So around the 1st of August, I started thinking, I'm going to give this a shot. I'm going to see what it takes to get a podcast going. So of course, the first thing you do is you go to Google and you think, okay, I can do this. And then so I went to Podbean, and I was reading how to do it. Okay, yeah, this seems easy enough. So the first thing I did was we came up with a name of how the 1420 Sports Bar it's just a 1420 Sports Podcast for years, but for the first 2 years. But for the 1420 Sports Podcast, what it was, I was sitting downstairs just over here at down at World Headquarters here, and having some beers in the middle of the afternoon during COVID. Everybody was drinking a lot of whatever it was, and so there was 4 beers on the table there, and I looked at the can. It said 355 milliliters, because that's what it is in Canada. 355 milliliters times 4 is 1420, and that's where 1420 came about. And it's not an elaborate story. It's not a pot marijuana infused reference by any means. And if you do that, that's great. It's never been my thing, so whatever. But that's how the word 1420 was born. So the very next thing that I did, of course, is what the first thing that any sane person does when they want to start a new business is, what do you need? You need an email address. So 1420 at gmailsports.com, 1420sports at gmail.com came to be, and it is to this day. That's how that all came to be. So I signed up to Podbean, blah, 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 and the rest is history. So on the 20th of August, 2020, not really knowing what I was doing, I plugged my phone into my speakers, or my headset into my phone, and let's create a podcast. Didn't know what I was talking about, didn't know how I was going to do it, didn't know how to edit it, whatever it was going to be. I just started talking, and the rest is history. I don't know if that show is still out and available. I don't remember really what I think. I just laid out what we wanted to possibly do with the podcast, and what the thought process was going to be to get this thing going, and what we're going to talk about, and how it was going to come to be, and everything else. But that's basically the very first episode, and that's how it got. The next one came about, and then Dave, so we put it out on social media, out on just Facebook. I don't think we even had a Facebook page. I used my own. I think we had a Twitter account maybe at that point, but put it out there, and it got 10, 12, 15 listens, whatever it was, family and friends and acquaintances, right? So they listened and say, hey, that's kind of neat. And the endorphins kick in. Anyway, this is kind of neat. The people listen to you, like the people who've been telling me to shut up for years, but now they're tuning into me on purpose. It's kind of been a running joke with the podcast for a long time with me and Dave, but you get a certain rush about it. And it's one of those things when you have a podcast, you have a platform. It's one of those things you go, hey, this is kind of neat. And then so the 4th show came around, and Dave goes, yeah, I invited Dave over. I said, hey, do you want that podcast thing you were talking about? I don't think he knew that I had a show at that point yet. Because he like I said, he was the one who brought it up in that June night. And I said, hey, do you want to come over on Sunday? We'll record a show and we'll have a good time. And it's really quite simple. We'll just talk and BS like we used to, just talk about some sports. And he said, sure, I'll come over. And so it was around 2 o'clock in the afternoon on a Sunday in September there. Football was on, so we were kind of watching it, and on it went. And Dave was a little nervous, and you could tell that he was a little bit nervous. But the very first topic that we had together was having would you have mic'd up benches or mic'd up athletes, and if it's going to be a bit R-rated, a bit X-rated, would you pay like pay-per-view games for that? And Dave, we had a great conversation about that, and I don't know if we can find that anywhere. You probably can somewhere if you went into a deep dive, but we had a great conversation, and it was a lot of fun. And then so I put it out there, didn't edit it. I hit a button, send, see you later on, and it's out there. And then you kind of promote it on your own Facebook page. But then Dave, he come over later he called me or texted me later on that night, and he said that he loved it, had a great time, and he was hooked. It didn't take him long to become a podcaster all of a sudden after one Sunday afternoon with a few beers and everything else that we had. And we had some food and everything. It was a good time. It was just two guys BS in the sports bar. And that was kind of the entire premise of when I first started this thing. That's what it was going to be. It was going to be just like what guys would talk about along the sports bar. Nobody wants to hear about stats. Nobody wants to hear about records. This guy versus that guy. It's just what ifs and ands and anecdotes and stupid hypotheticals. That's kind of what me and Dave ended up being that night, and it was a lot of fun. And then so Dave, he became a regular contributor. He called himself, I think that's still on his Facebook page or on his Twitter account, that he is a regular contributor, and that's what he calls himself. And now he's every Monday and Thursday. And he's part of the show, and he's part of the 1420 family till death do us part, I guess. But it's funny how it all worked out with Dave, and how he got the bug a little bit, and it became a thing for me, and I really started to enjoy it, and things were going good, but the sound quality wasn't going good. And then you have a thing where the the audio was getting quite bad, and me and Dave were running stagnant on material because COVID. There wasn't games being played yet, and on and on. And then I had to go back to Medicine Hat for work full time. So Deanne, she come with me. She was, because it was her job. She was shut down for quite some time during COVID, so she was able to come to Medicine Hat. We stayed at her brother's place in the Hat there, and we were trying to record things, and we were trying to get things going on just over the audio, because Dave would come over during when the restrictions were lifted. Dave would come over every Thursday, I think it was, or Monday and Thursday. I can't remember what it was, but he'd come over, we record and have a good time and drink some beers and have some laughs, and we put it out there, and it was done. It was easy. But then when we got to have to do it remotely, we didn't know what to do. I had no idea what was going on. The sound quality was horrible. It was awful. We didn't know if we were going to carry it on. I was contemplating quitting at about show 66, and then show 67 it got really bad, where we're trying to record through a speaker on a phone, because I didn't even know that Zoom even existed, right? Why would I know? Like, it was one of those things. I had no idea what to do. I didn't want to complicate things. I'm not a tech guy by any means. So we just say, yeah, you know what, maybe this isn't meant to be. And then we said, well, let's give it one more shot. And that show 68 was when Jimmy Neutron Boy Genius, my nephew Jim Schwarn, Jimmy Valentine, he calls himself now. He's got a fledgling music career. He's doing quite well for himself in Vancouver. He's got a lot of some new singles coming out all the time. We'll get to that on another show. But you guys already know if you haven't listened to this. But he pretty much saved our show back in that February of 2021, I think it was show 68. And he made sure that we kept going, and he's been with us ever since. And he puts in countless hours doing the show for us. And it's a penniless job, this podcasting thing, right? But he gets it out there, and he finds time, and he makes us sound better than we actually are. And we thank him to this day. And he'll be joining us on Sunday for the third birthday celebration. So we're at that point. We got to show 68. Now this is good. The sound quality is good. The downloads went back up because some people started listening there. So it was starting to look up for the 1420 podcast. Like, hey, this is pretty great. So what's the next thing you do? Of course, as any sane person would do, the very next thing you do is say, merchandise. Let's get some merchandise. So we had hats, and we had t-shirts made, and we had cups made, beer mugs. I still got some kicking around here, and so we started selling those a little bit to family and friends and sending them out, and they were very supportive, which was good. But you got thinking, geez, you know what? You want to get bigger, and the downloads still aren't where they got to be, and we still really want to start trying different things and make things a little bit better. So and then Dave and I were kind of getting, once again, we were getting a little bit stagnant on our topics, and like, me and David know each other for a long time, 20, 25, almost 30 years now. And so I don't say we agree all the time, but it was too much agreeing on a podcast that what the debates weren't very good. So we got to a point, I got, how can we improve this fucking show, and how can we get better? It took me 12 hours and 55 seconds, or 12 minutes, 55 seconds to swear. But then I got thinking about something about how I could make the show a topic or something that we could do, or a segment that we could do to make things a little bit better. So I came up with this thing that no matter what, I just called it Who Was Better. I come up with two names, similar names, whatever it might be, that were from two different aspects of life, and called it Who Was Better. And for those of you who listen to the show, you'll understand what it is. And it was one of those things. And I thought to myself, the only way I can get to have Dave disagree with me is, no matter what he says on this Who Was Better, no matter what he says or who he says, I will say the opposite no matter what. So here's one of the ones from the one of the initial 1420 podcast. That's actually one of the newer ones from the one of a past show for the one of the Who Is Betters.
Simple. Who is better, Josh Donaldson or Josh Sorvino, Paul from the Wonder Years?
Oh, douchebag versus the nerdy best friend. I can't stand Josh Donaldson. I've always thought him a douchebag. Give me Paul Sorvino. Give me the nerdy best friend.
I liked him. Do you remember back in the early
Pfeiffer was his last
Paul
name.
Pfeiffer. Do you
Yeah.
remember back in the early 2000s when there was a rumor that he was Marilyn
He was
Manson?
Marilyn Manson. Yeah.
Like,
I looked that
Jesus.
up. Stop it.
Marilyn Manson got his ass kicked here in Lethbridge at the Denny's.
God punched at a
Punched in
Denny.
the face in the Denny's in Lethbridge. You know your career's gone south. You get punched in the fucking Denny's in Lethbridge.
I don't know who was right or who was wrong. I always wondered if he had his makeup on when he got punched.
Like, how do you're Marilyn Manson, you're a mega star, You end up in a Denny's in Lethbridge at 3 a.m, man. Jesus.
After a concert, I don't know. Like, what's your thing? Is that what you're saying? It's a budget hotel, and
Was
why
he
would
up-
you go to? Why would you go
He
to
probably
Denny's with-
stayed at the Sandman because the radio station was in there at the time, so maybe it was sponsored by blah blah blah.
That's possible. That is possible. Like,
That's
what do you-
got to be a low point in Marilyn Manson's career.
You
Get
think he
punched
got
at
a-
Denny's in Lethbridge.
pan scrambler, and then he got his pan scrambled.
So, anyways, that's how Who Was Better came to be, and one of those things that we used just the last week. We do it probably once every 2 weeks, but that's how the Who Was Better segment come along. So, as we got going, the downloads came up, and it was getting better and things, but then you get stagnant again, and things kind of plateau a little bit. So, what do you do now that we're on Zoom? Because Zoom, we decided to use Zoom. We send the audio to Jim, and he would put that. But now that we have the video, let's do what would any sane person do who has no idea what they're doing is let's get a YouTube channel. So that's the next thing that old Brent Radlinsky did, was get the 1420 Sports Bar podcast a YouTube channel without any idea about video editing or how to do it or what to do. And then so not only now are you worried about how many downloads you get for the audio version of your show, and then trying to get it onto Spotify and Apple and iHeartRadio and what blah 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 and the rest of them, so they're all on there and good pods and everything else. So you have all those other things that you have to worry about, and find different platforms to make sure that every platform is good. Now you got to get it onto YouTube, because that's what any sane person would do, is get themselves involved in something else that they have no idea what they're doing. So that was the next step, was to get a YouTube channel. So we got that going, and then so we would have to put that on there. And as you can see from, if you're watching it on YouTube later on when it's up there, the video quality wasn't as good as it is now, and there was no graphics or editing, but and that got better over time, because why would I know how to do this thing? I'm an umpire, I know, and a construction superintendent, so I didn't know what I was doing, and so there's no help, and there is a manual, but of course you're old and stubborn and pig-headed, so you don't get any thoughts on how to do that kind of stuff, so you wing it and you hope. So now you're stressing about how many followers you have, how many subscribers you have, and how many downloads and views you're getting on your YouTube channel. Why wouldn't you do that? It only makes sense to do that, right? As a podcaster. So we get going with that a little bit. It's going pretty good, and then we're kind of stagnant about 177 subscribers to our YouTube channel, which is good, and it's fun, and we have a good time with that. And they're up there, and it's always great. But now that you got that going, you have to figure out what a PNG and an MP4 to MP3 and everything else, and then so that gets going. The downloads were good, and people watched that, and like I said, that was going pretty good. But then, of course, you plateau again, and things don't go as good. So you get a little bit ho hum, and you get a little bit down in the mood, or down in the dumps, I guess is the proper terminology. And you go, geez, what can I do to possibly get our downloads up to get this show going in the right direction, to make sure that it's purposeful. We're doing this for a reason, not just for 4 guys or a couple of guys drinking beer a couple of times a week. You can do that without having all the headaches or anything else. So the next thing I did, I said, you know what, I'm going to give myself more work. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give myself more work. I'm going to get another podcast about umpiring baseball, because why wouldn't you? I know a lot about umpiring baseball, and I know a little bit about podcasting, so I want to intertwine the two, because there isn't a lot of podcasts about umpiring. There just really isn't. So why wouldn't you just do that and have a good time with that, and get that out there and going, and hope that catches on. So now, not only do you have the 1420 podcast twice a week, plus the YouTube stuff, plus trying to promote, you get that going and everything else. So now you have the Hey Blue Umpire podcast. So that gets going pretty good. And it's the next thing you do, then that takes care of itself, because that one's pretty easy. There's only X amount, and you just talk about umpires. You can umpire on here, you go talk blah blah blah. It's always some situation you come up with. So the next thing you do, because your podcast, your numbers are going up, you think, I should really try to monetize on this thing. Like, I should try to find a way to monetize this and promote my podcast, because I'm going to get rich doing this. Well, not so fast. The next thing that happens is you get one of these deals. The first one that we got, I think, was from Fans Edge. It was called. I got it through Impact. It's a sponsorship deal, and you get sponsors, but they don't give you promo codes, and you have to promote their goods, and you get a percentage of your sales. And it's kind of a pain. It does okay, but it's kind of it's a pain in the ass a little bit to do that. And there's ways to go about it. So I won't bore you with those stories. But so now you're trying to promote that inside of your podcast and on your YouTube channel, and on it goes, and through Twitter, and you want to still have good content. So you're pretty busy throughout the day trying to get it all done. And then you're still stressing about how many downloads you get and how many views you're getting on your YouTube channel, right? And you're trying to get everything going. Plus you have your day job. Plus you're trying to still watch sports because you're a sports podcast. So you want to talk about things that are relevant because you can't just keep talking about things from the past. So in your 24 hours a day, you have all that going on. So yeah, good. No problem. I got this figured out. Well, I get sick of this Fans Edge thing. We still use it for the Twitter polls and stuff like that. We use that. People click on and purchase and everything else. So that goes all right. So the next thing you do as a sane person and as a podcaster and a guy who's hoping to grow the brand a little bit, the next thing you do is you spend hours and hours and hours after work contacting any business that you can think of that will possibly give you a sponsorship to actual money in your pockets every month and figure something out. And so you go to there was so many, but one of the first people to respond to us was SeatGeek. We still use them to this day. And so they responded. So yeah, here use promo code 1420pod, $20, blah blah blah. You guys all know the trick. I'll put the banner up right now. And it's one of those things that stuck ever since. And like people use it, and they still every day, every month, people use it. And we make a couple of bucks to pay for the stuff that we need to get. Like, we're not getting rich on that by any means. It's one of those things. So it's so that's the next thing you do is you get all these you try sponsorships and find ways to go. But of course, as a podcast, you try to do more and you try to get things going on more. So what do? You start inviting people onto your show, and because you don't have enough to do as everything else that's going on in your life. So it's one of those things that you your sponsors and shows and podcasts and different things going on. Plus. So now you get different people on your show. One of the first guys that we had on, I think, was Aaron from Brutally Honest Sports, and him and what was his partner's name? He goes through so many bloody co-hosts. I don't know what was going on back then. I'll think of it later on. But anyways, they came on. And we had a really good talk about all kinds of different things, and we had a lot of laughs that night. But then that was in January, and I was staying at a hotel in Medicine Hat because work and everything else. So it turned out okay. But lots of shows going on, and then things were happening and things were going. And it was one of those funny little deals that you get some guests on, and we had John and Dave from Level the Playing Field. They came on at that same kind of time. We had those guys on, and different things going on. Then when I come home on the weekends, we'd still record the Monday and Thursday show with Dave. But then on Saturdays, I would, of course, what do you want to do? You want to get more downloads and more listens. So what I would do is I'd come down here on Saturdays, and I had a buddy by the name of Matt Muldoon come on the show, and we had a heck of a great conversation talking about he's not a big Mike Trout fan either. So you get up to you because you want to see your downloads go up, and you don't want people to forget about your show. You keep going out there. This is my lunatic thinking when it comes to this bloody thing. So you go out there and you have a bunch of laughs and things and stuff because you want to stay relevant. You want to have more downloads and clicks and likes and blah blah and all that stuff that gets your endorphins running and everything going. So you tend to put yourself on a bit of an overload, but it's one of those things that if you like doing it, you like doing it, and it turns out great. But you don't stop there as a podcaster. Like the next logical thing to do, because as a podcaster, what most guys do, and I know I'm not the only one, but what you do is you start listening to other podcasts, especially indie podcasts, not the big boys on ESPN and Michael Kay show. Yeah, I listen to those ones obviously to try to get to that level, but you listen to indie guys and what's going on there in their lives and what they do to get their show a little bit better. And you take little pieces from here and pieces from there, and you try to make your show better, and you don't copycat, but you get things going because it's just that's what you do to try to make your show. So this all goes through your head as a podcaster. You're trying to what you can do to possibly make your show better. So I started listening to a few different. I can't remember which ones they were originally, but I saw this thing called the Belly Up Media Network. So what's the next thing a guy does? He applies to get on the Belly Up Media Network. Well, holy cow! They said, yeah, go ahead, you're on there. So now you have this to go on. You're adding these graphics and this and that, and then you got to learn about overlays because Josh Mahler from the No Credentials, not No Credentials. I can't remember off the top of my head right now why I can't remember it. I have no idea why I can't remember what that show is called, but it doesn't much matter at this point. So we start laughing about that. But you got to have a certain layout of how they want things done on the Belly Up Media Network to make everything uniform per se, and how to make it look more professional. 100% agreeable. So have to learn about overlays and this and that, because why wouldn't you learn about overlays, and why would you know what an overlay was? Because I had no idea. So now you have all that going on to make that better. So now you have different ones for here and different ones for there, and then to make everything, because you don't want like your the umpire show to look at the same as the 1420 show. So there it is. So that's how that came to be with Belly Up Media Network, and we thank you very much for everything they've done for us. They've got us a few sponsors that put a couple of bucks in the pockets with the Rex MD boner pills, Dave called them, and then we had Caldera Labs, which is sponsored to this day. I think for the next 15 days you're still with us unless we sign up with them again. But anyways, so now we have that with Belly Up Sports. It's been a very good partnership with them. But it's another thing that gets on the plate that you okay, now that I'm with Belly Up, our downloads should go up again. They do gradually. They go up. Yeah, good, great. We're number 4 or 5 on their list of podcasts as of right now, I think, which is nice. So we do quite well with them. But you get a little bit down the dumps because things aren't going like you quite hoped. Because as a podcaster, and it was more of a diary of a podcaster, I'm going to call this one. But as a podcaster, that's what you do. You figure, okay, what can I do to get more people listening to my show? So the next thing I do, I get down the dumps again. And I think it was last January or last November. I come up with the idea of 1420 in the morning, 14 minutes and 20 seconds worth of sports talk every morning. So I was doing that and I still do. I don't do it as many times as I should, but we'll get to that in half a second. But that was, well, okay, we'll do it every day. We'll do birthdays. We'll do on this day a quick topic, 14 minutes. I used to have some highlights of the shows from past shows that we put up there, video lauded. I'll have it live on YouTube every day because that's what you got to do. So then you have more work put on your plate for something that you just hope that people watch. So you got to promote it, and you got to be on there all the time. In your own head is how you get this to go. So that was next on with Belly Up, and because you want your downloads to go up, you want to see your numbers go up, and they have with the 1420 in the morning. A lot of people quite like it, and they get a lot of people watching live during the day, and that's one thing that we want to build on a little bit here at World Headquarters, and we'll get to that in half a second too. So you get a lot of stuff going on in your head, and you try different segments, and you try different things, and you try to figure out ways to get people to listen to your show and to like your show, because as a podcaster, you really want to entertain, right? And this is something I've wanted to do since I was a kid. When I got done playing junior hockey, I really wanted to be a sportscaster. So I went to Lethbridge Community College and was going to take communication arts, but I found out that the money wasn't really there to do it, and it just wasn't in the cards for me at that point. So for the last 30 years, I guess I've been putting off this sports broadcasting thing, and now that I'm doing it, I quite enjoy it. And you come up with different segments and different thoughts and different ideas, and it's nice. Just yesterday, I was over at Brown's for a beer pre-show last night, and the general manager there, Dave, he came over and he said, "Hey, that was a great show that you had the other morning." And I heard he just started listening to the show, or maybe was listening for a while, but he came across to me too and said, "Hey, that was a great show. You talked about the Toronto Blue Jays the other day. I really enjoyed that." And you get that little push to say, okay, people are listening, people are out there enjoying your shows, because that's why you do it, right? You do it for yourself because you want to have a good time, and you want to entertain yourself, and you make yourself happy. But when other people come out and say, "Hey, I really enjoyed that show that you did about something," he said that was the reason why he first started watching baseball was the 1992 Toronto Blue Jays. He's been a Jays fan ever since. So when you get those little pat in the backs, it really helps out your cause and everything else, and it makes it feel pretty good about why you're doing it. Like I don't know how many other podcasters out there that actually openly admit to having a podcast. When people ask me, I don't say it. When people ask me about a podcast, I'll say yeah, but I don't go out and say, "Hi, I'm Brent. I'm the sole proprietor of the 1420 podcast," or the host, or whatever I would call it. I never bring it up. I never talk about it, which is a fault of mine. I don't like it would be probably better way to promote it. When people come to me and ask me about it, I say, "Yeah, I got a podcast," but I never bring it up. And I don't know if I'm not ashamed of it. It's just an odd thing that's pretty new to me still 3 years in, but it's been a wild ride for 3 years, and a lot of laughs. We've had a lot of guests on the show, a lot of friends who come on the show who didn't have any idea what they were doing, and they come on just to BS sports. It's been one of the more rewarding things. And one thing that we had a few laugh about when Dave Roberts came on, I think it was last September, and I got it up here. I'll give you guys a listen to this. When Dave Roberts came on, and Dave came up with a segment, he says it's his own vintage thing that he came up with on his own. I don't know what to audit that someday. He should have trademarked it because it's a hell of a segment. It's Would You Rather. We had a really funny one the other night. We were talking about would you rather get a hole in one in golf by yourself or get a 300 game in bowling with a packed bowling alley. We had a lot of laughs with that one. We laughed with that one. It's gonna be on our anniversary show on Saturday or Sunday. But have a listen to when Dave Roberts, friend of the show, was on the 1420 podcast last September.
Simple. Who is better, Josh?
No matter what. Dave, give us one more. We'll call her a night.
Last one for the night. Okay, going for a beer. I got 3 on this one. Who would you rather go for a beer with? Kermit the Frog, Mickey Mouse, or Bugs Bunny?
Oh. Kermit, Mickey, or Bugs?
Yeah.
Kermit's a ladies' man, though. Kermit's a ladies' man. I think he'd be fun to hang out with for a night. He might.
I think Kermit would be all right.
Yeah. Bugs Bunny, he's always chewing carrots. I don't know if I'm down with
Too
that.
rambunctious.
Yeah.
And getting in a fight. Like he's
Yeah.
gonna he's
Causing
gonna
trouble.
causing trouble
Asking
and
about
that you finish
tattoos
it
on
off.
guys' faces and shit. Like he wouldn't shut up.
Yeah, no, I agree. And then Bugs Bunny or Mickey Mouse, you're too associated with kids' parks and things like that. I'm an adult now. I'm good with that. I'd like to have a conversation with an adult, and that might have to be Kermit the Frog.
Yeah, I wanted because like remember Kermit at the Muppet Show, he had to make it work and the thing and just he had to let his frog legs down a little bit.
In the 2-year history of the 1420 Sports Bar podcast, that is the dumbest question that's ever been posed.
But we're all in agreement.
So, anyways, there's a funny little segment we have. So there's lots of you can still go back and listen to all those shows. A lot of the who would you rather's and who is better, and we come up with those on our own. It's try to come up with different segments, and as a podcaster, there's always something going through your mind. You kind of neglect things around you, and you lose track of the real world around you because all you're thinking about is how you can make your show better or up on YouTube and how you can make things better and how you get people to listen to watch your show. And it can be a challenge at times, but it's a lot of fun. I don't have any negative to say about it. The only thing that you just always wish there's more, right? That's one of those things, but it's a lot of fun. We appreciate here at 1420 World Headquarters everybody who listens to the show and supports the show and talks about other people because that's how it really grows. And we can put it out there on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and everything else. But at the end of the day, it's the content that gets people to come back and to listen and everything else and to talk to people about the show because there's a lot of podcasts out there don't have any of that kind of stuff. It's about people talking about the show, and we appreciate everybody's doing what you guys do to help promote us. And it's a great thing. And for podcasters out there, my advice to you, and like I'm learning. I have no idea what I'm doing half the time. You're swinging a miss a lot of the time. You don't know, like sometimes you put shows out there that are fantastic, and yet you're thinking that's the shows that's gonna put us over the top. There's no way people aren't going to listen to that and nothing. And then there's other ones where you go, geez, that thing was a piece of crap that we did, and then hundreds of people listen to it. So it's a swing and a miss, and like we talk about it all the time on our show. If you throw enough shit in the wall, someone's bound to stick, right? And we've been throwing a lot of shit on a lot of walls for 3 years now, and it's been a fun journey and it's been a lot of fun. But my advice to podcasts out there is don't just keep hitting refresh on the old on whatever keeps your number of downloads for the megaphone for us. Don't keep hitting refresh hoping that and trying to will the numbers to go up because they'll go up eventually. Don't keep looking at your subscriber rate because you know what, the people who listen to your show and the people who watch your show, they're the ones that matter the most. They're the ones that you need to entertain and keep them coming back because they're the ones that will help you grow. It's not the ones that you don't have. I think it was the first year that we were doing this, I had a conversation with a friend of mine. He says that nobody listens to it, like none of the guys. And I said, well, you know what, that's fine because they've been listening to me for 35 40 years, so I that's okay. There's still 8 billion other sets of ears out there that I want to entertain, and that there's a lot of people out there who will listen, and it's one of those things. And if your friends don't listen, that's okay. You hope they do, but it doesn't it doesn't slow me down knowing that they don't listen, because like they've heard all the jokes before and they've heard all the stories before. You like when they do hear listen to one and they send you a message here or there about stuff, and it kind of keeps you going. But don't stress, podcasters. Don't stress about who doesn't listen. Just stress about who does listen. Keep those people listening, and just keep having fun doing it, and do it for yourself as well, and make sure you're still having fun doing it, and don't just do it because you feel obligated. And don't give up. If you have a dream and you have an idea, you have something you want to do, put it out there. If you want to become a writer, write. If you want to be a podcaster, write. If you want to be a YouTuber, do it. If you want to just keep doing it, but keep trying new things. If it doesn't work, try something else. It's something that it's one of my biggest things here is that I'm a little bit nervous for some reason. I don't know why, is acquiring guests and getting old friends of mine that play Nash Hockey. Like we had Harry York on the show back in January, I think it was. It was a great time, and we hadn't skipped a beat. We hadn't talked to each other in 30 years almost, and we kept talking. We were talking like we knew each other. We knew each other forever, and we saw each other yesterday. It was a great conversation. We got to get more guys like that, and we have Bobby Stewart on, and that's one thing that I'd like to do with the show is get more of those type of guys on, and some guys I don't know, and grow it a little bit, and I don't know why. It's one of my things that I don't feel comfortable for some reason talking to people and asking, because I guess you don't like rejection, right? And that's one thing, like, who the fuck is this guy? Why would I come on his podcast? Because you know what, our podcast is pretty good. It's doing okay, and I don't want to say it's great by any means, but I quite enjoy what we do, and I hope people enjoy it too. And I hope you guys come on Sunday and watch the show live up on YouTube. So it should be a lot of fun. Have some friends of the show coming. We have Dave from Level the Playing Field, Aaron from Brutally Honest Sports. And of course, Jim from the Fan of the Van, he's coming on, and to do sports news. I'm not sure if they're both coming or not, but it's going to be a good show. But it should be a lot of fun. Jim Barbarino is going to be on there with us as well to come and talk about his music and everything else that's got going on. And of course, Dave is joining us. So it should be it's only going to be a 1 hour thing, but we really appreciate if you guys would come and watch the show and post some things up and have some fun. And if you want to come on the show and BS and congratulate or tell us we suck, whatever it might be, make sure you do, because it's been a heck of a journey. Of the 1420 podcast. 3 years to the day is when I was down here stressing about how we were going to make this thing go, and then 2 years or 3 years or 200 and whatever it is days later. So two days from now, 3 years ago, we did the very first one. So it's a lot of fun. We enjoy it. We're going to keep growing, keep trying. I don't know how much more I can take on, but it's one of those things. It's just you can't slow down, because if we go away, somebody else will be right behind us to take our spot. So we might as well stick around. Plans for the future, I think we're going to me and Dave will probably keep doing the 1420 Sports Bar podcast every Monday and Thursday, as long as you guys keep listening. That's a fun one. Those ones are pretty easy to do, because me and Dave can just BS and banter about and have some laughs and just talk about old times and talk about just the what ifs and Fs and the who is betters and the would you rathers of the world. And then the one thing I really want to do with the 1420 in the morning, and it's like I got to get more disciplined with it. I really would like to make that a daily show where there's hundreds of people watching every day on YouTube or the Facebook channel or Facebook Live, whatever it is, but more so on YouTube, and have that as a daily show with guests every day throughout the sports world, and have that something that people want to tune in. Maybe I'll have a time at 10 o'clock every day for half an hour every day in, day out, where people want to tune into that show. That's something I really want to push for, and I think that's something I'm really going to try to do. But it's up to me to be a little more disciplined and worry about that a little bit more than all the other stuff, which I tend to get sidetracked a little bit. I get the blinders on. I try to just too much at once, because I figured I got to be relevant all the time. But like I said, it's been a great run here with 1420 in the morning and 1420 Sports Bar podcast and everything else, and Bodog and Manscaped and Rex MD and Rocket Sports and who else. There's been so many great sponsors over the Caldera Labs, and of course our prevalent one, SeatGeek, has been the big one. So we thank everybody. We thank everybody at Belly Up Sports for everything they've done for us in the long illustrious history of the 1420 podcast. We're not going anywhere. We're not going away. I just thought I would jump on here and talk about the show and how it all came to be. And then the Diary of a Podcaster. Don't give up your dreams, because why would you? It doesn't hurt anything to keep dreaming and keep fighting and keep plugging away. We'll keep doing it as long as you guys keep listening. Keep spreading the good word of the 1420 podcast. And there it is. There's the Diary of a Podcaster. Everybody probably has their own stories, but I think they're probably all similar who does these crazy things. But anyways, we'll talk to you guys on Sunday afternoon. Make sure you tune in. at noon Eastern or noon Mountain Standard Time. That's 2:00 Eastern. It'll be up there on YouTube. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. And hey, have a great weekend. If you don't tune in, make sure you listen to this podcast wherever it is you get your podcasts. And if you want to come on the show, just let us know. We'll make something work. So there's 1420 in the morning. There's the Hey Blue podcast. There's the 1420 podcast, and whatever else I got going on out there. So make sure you keep listening, and we'll keep putting them out there. Thanks everybody for listening to this show, and we'll talk to you guys later. And remember, it doesn't matter where you are, it's who you're with, and take care of each other. More importantly, take care of yourself to you around. Keep your stick on the ice, and don't swing at high pitches, Jim. You just listened to the 1420 Sports Bar Podcast. 4 Beer with Sports, talking a whole lot more. We are part of the Belly Up Media Network.